Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you all here. We are coming into the home straight, as they say.
Home
It's been
stretch.
good, huh? Yeah. When Chris and I thought about doing this, we were talking about it the other day. We just thought this is so important to teach and so not going to be as effective if we just do a video recording and people have that. Like so much of it, so much of the magic happens by walking everyone through every single step and bringing you all along and helping sort things out because you can see how once you get the hang of how this works, you can see how it's relatively straightforward to set up, but getting all that clutter organized in your head to move forward does take some dedicated thought and some personal time. So yeah, we like doing it because of the personal catch up we get to see and all the comments. I've been in the group answering a few questions. I know Chris has as well, and we're here to help you again today with any you've got. I know Chris has got a training that is going to begin to put this all together for you in a whole next level um, as we do it today. And so I'm just going to get, look, where's my chat here? All right. So given that we are at, what, it's your Wednesday, I want to, if I could have a look, in the chat, could you put a yes if you have launched your PBC3
Otherwise known as your challenge test.
as your challenge test? Yeah. Oh, look at this. Yes, yes, yes. Fantastic. All right. And so thanks, Michael, for letting us know. I turned it off because there were some issues, Curtis. Okay. Yep. Still collecting impressions on my second 24 hours at this point. Excellent. All right. And then I'm assuming for the rest of you, then it's a no. And that's either because PVC 2 is still running, which is fine. Um, we want to, it is Wednesday, so we want to see if we can get you all finished by the end of the week. So does anyone here have any challenges, no pun intended, that they're facing with getting PBC3 launched? Any questions, any things you're uncertain about, anything you specifically want ticked off that we haven't got around to answering yet? Here is your chance to put your hand up and let us know. So if you've got something you really need solved before you can launch PBC3, let us know in the chat as well, and we can bring you out and help you get that going on. And if not, that's okay as well. Yeah, that's right. Curtis, we had said we'd bring you out, mate, and have a look and see why. See if we can figure out some reason for why your CTR alls were so low. Um, and Alex is talking about can't make it properly work for my niche.
Alex. Okay,
Alex,
yeah.
is that
She's
yeah,
still
the book
having trouble kind of translating.
books?
It
Yeah, yeah.
does work. It's just difficult when the training is in the context of non-storytelling, but they do relate. We can look at it though.
Yeah, Chris will look at that and help it work. I'm seen him do it multiple times. I'm still riding on his coattails when it comes to the book stuff because he's I don't know where he's pulling that out of his head, but he's got this whole little file in there. Um,
Well, I'll
uh,
tell you, it's because the original messaging was developed from storytelling. So the pains and benefits and all of that came later after I was telling stories. So it literally was rooted in stories first and then translated to Epic and all of the elements afterwards. So the actual translation was from story to what we have here, pains, benefits, challenges, and all that stuff. So it's actually
I'll
really
give you an
cool.
insight too, and just to get you thinking about this. We I jumped on a course up with someone once who was trying to muscle their way into the code methodology program, and as usual, I'm the bouncer that that stands at the front door and says, "Who, I've got to make sure I don't let the wrong people in." And this particular guy was selling. He had a band, like it was a country western. It was him and his son. I think maybe another relative was still playing in it, and they'd been successful. They're still selling CDs as well as MP3 downloads, shipping them all around the nation. And so we had a chat about it, and the way they were approaching selling their music was, if you like, you know, X, enter famous band, if you like the sound of this band, then try this, and etc. And that's how they were going about trying to do it. And they weren't having a great deal of success with ads. And again, because every song is a story, the whole thing I was able to let them in on is, hey, well, choose the hero song of the album, and we're going to write about that, and we're going to do a PVC test. So they came on board, they did it, and I think they did so well that they're like, we need to come on. And I think, Chris, you actually ended up doing some pretty detailed one-on-one client work with them at the time. But that's just an example of how being able to use an Epic had pains, benefits, and challenges to sell a song was just a great application of this. Worked incredibly well. So yeah, it works across it all, and we've done that a few times. A few different musicians have come in. Quite a few authors have come through.
Always with success.
All right.
Because the thing about that is authors already have very strong storytelling skills if they're doing nonfiction, or sorry, fiction, if they're doing fiction books. And so the translation is good once you understand the key components of the elements in that context. So I'm just finishing up one little piece here, guys, and then I'm going to be sharing my screen and walking you through a training. I just wanted to, I have it here, but I just realized some of it was much more not in sync in terms of brand colors and and it's like some of them are a different color, and I wanted to just make sure they were standardized for all of you so it's easier to deal with there. So just finishing this right now, and we are about there. All right, so we have some fun stuff today. This is a bit more about where the rubber meets the road. So any last things here we need to cover before I jump into this?
Well, I thought, before we jump into the training, just again, because I'm not sure how long Curtis can stay around for, do we want to just have a quick look at that and see if we can identify what's going on, bring Curtis on out, and get that solved?
Yeah. I'm going to bring Alex out as well. We'll just get that story one out of the way. Hey, Curtis.
Hey.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, so the more I go through the process, the more I'm thinking that I maybe started from slightly an off perspective, and that's part of learning, right? Which is fine. But then between that and not being able to dive into it with you guys yesterday, I saw, when I was scrolling through Facebook, I saw my ad pop up on my feed, and I can actually show you. I'll share my screen.
The formatting was different.
Yeah, like when I looked at the preview, it was showing it was showing the pains, the benefits, and the challenges in that above creative headline. But then when I saw it on my own feed, I screenshotted this. It's cutting off it was cutting off almost all of the.
Did you make sure to choose just the Facebook feed, or did you choose any other placements inside of your ads?
No, just the Facebook feed. I quadruple checked all of those settings to make sure.
This is some of the stuff that Facebook does randomly and automatically. Is they're doing this with everybody. They go through bouts where they do change things up. Part of why this is happening right now, you notice how it has all of your followers above?
Yes.
So because of that, they're reformatting it into less space, because what they're concerned about is keeping people scrolling and not allowing any more extra expanded space that could slow someone down from seeing another ad, like they want to get impressions as fast as possible. So they don't want to extend an ad and make it longer, because that means you do that millions of times, and it's like they can't get as many impressions in, which is their agenda, right? That's how they make money.
Right.
So there might be settings inside of your ads manager that you can uncheck. There's like 6 different versions of ads manager, right? So not all of them look exactly the same, but there might be a place in there where you can uncheck for it to not to be able to see your friends and followers. And it would really depend on if that's in your ads manager in the ads section to do that, where it might take that out and then you'll have that third line there.
Yeah.
So the tough part about this is we're going off the preview of ads manager, but in reality, a lot of this plays out um, on a per phone basis. People who have an iPhone 12 are different from an iPhone 15 in the formatting, or if they have a Galaxy, it's different, or a Pixel, or it's different in the size of the lettering, and so it will auto format a bit to that phone. And so this is why I've always attempted to practice keeping things as succinct as possible so that we don't get cut off and I can actually make my elements smaller and not use up all that space
Right.
and accomplish all of the elements I want to within the space that there is, even with a little bit of white space left, because some phones will cut it off. The reality is we can't change that, right? That's a variable that's outside of our reach and scope. So the best we can do is follow the standardized format and then leave a little bit of room, a little bit of white space if we can. And some people have text sizes on their settings of their phone to large rather than medium. That will also customize the look and feel of how it formats. So that's the part that we cannot necessarily do. But the thing that's standardized about that is you're pretty much going to have the same mix of people that see it in one format and see it in another, just like everybody else, because everybody's seeing the ads coming through their newsfeed, right? So there's going to be a handful of them that are on a Samsung Galaxy, a handful of them are on an iPhone 12, iPhone 13, and it's just something we deal with, right? So we still see a correlation with the numbers, and that's the important part.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I didn't even think about the difference in like sizing on your phone settings and stuff too. So
It
what
particularly
what
affects
I'm
obviously
taking
the
from
older people.
what I'm taking from that is keep it as brief, succinct as possible. You know, the less words, the better. Which totally makes sense. So coming back to, so that was the straw that broke the camel's back and why I decided to turn off PVC3, because you know, I still think that at the root of it, I think I need to kind of go back to stage one and like start a new pain test, because I'm just not sure that, you know, I started off with the pain with PVC1. I think my highest CTR all was like 2.7, and a lot of them were under 1%. And then for sure, when I got to PVC2, nothing was higher than like 1 point, I want to say 5%. I think it was actually 1.3. I'm not sure. I'd have to double check, but I'm starting to think that I need to kind of go back to the drawing board. So I started to brainstorm some, I guess, more succinct and more hard hitting, for lack of a better phrase, pains and benefits and stuff. And so, yeah, just whatever direction or comments or thoughts you guys have
Can you
would.
show me your other ads, like your ads manager and the results from that other tests?
Yeah, so let's see.
I want to
Just
see your
as you're
pain
doing that
test first.
too, there's a discussion about parents and whether they're looking at your solution already, like they're already considering the solution. And there may be, as I'm looking at it, there may be a big
Awareness
hurdle I've
level.
got to get over between seeing someone whose kids have tantrums or can't sit still, and then seeing pictures of people in martial arts uniforms. That's asking them straight out of the gate to make a connection between that and martial arts. And if in their mind they're going, well, I'm not open to martial arts, I haven't been presented for an argument for why I would even consider martial arts, then that image is also going to add a lot, because you don't then get to set the context and draw them through why they might consider it. So that fits into this whole thing about, are they problem aware? Are they solution aware? And what you're really targeting. And so that's going to have an impact, because the pains you're there, like if the kids were already doing martial arts, but they weren't liking the type of martial art they were doing, or the parents were looking for a different school to go to, like martial arts school, because they've just moved into the area, you're selling them a solution they're already looking for. So that's the other thing that just pops up into my mind as I look at that.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess, you know, I guess the question that comes to mind, if I can figure out how to phrase it appropriately, would be, you know, should I consider, and I thought about this too, the image, should I consider even more of like a generic or neutral image, at least for testing purposes, because I'm really trying to figure out like what messaging is resonating.
Show me your
Um,
image that you're using for this test.
yeah, it's just that it's the kids, happy kids in karate uniforms. That's what I've used for all the testing so far.
How parents go from frequent tantrums to cooperative.
Yeah, cooperative was what tested best, even though it was really low CTR.
Yeah, but you're saying parents. Parents don't have frequent tantrums, kids do.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I just I think I brought this up early on in our live sessions, and maybe I misunderstood, but it seemed like, using parents as sort of the common bond was the way to go.
If you're going to
But I,
use the parent as a common bond, then you definitely need to have the pain talk about the child. And so in this particular case, I might not have heard you correctly, or I'm, maybe miscommunication in that, but clearly this does not make sense. Clearly, parents don't have frequent tantrums showing kids in there. And so I wouldn't, I wish you would have pushed back on me a bit like, hey, here's what I'm doing. And, I would never have said, talk about parents having frequent tantrums. Like it doesn't make any sense. This is why it's not working.
okay,
It could have had a better chance of working if there were single quotes around frequent tantrums, because even then the parents might be able to put two and two together and realize you're obviously talking about kids and the kids are in the photo. But you see how we've got to make a few assumptions there, and in that split second that you've got to grab them, there's quite a bit of mental effort that's got to go on for them to put that together when they realize what it is, as opposed to it being more immediately understandable. Um,
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. I think what I asked about early on is, should I use how we go from versus how parents go from or how kids go from? And I just don't think we got too
I,
much into it.
I think when you asked me that, I didn't have the context for your offer. You
Okay.
you asked it, and I think you asked it in the chat, and I was just like, well, yeah, parents, if that's your avatar, right? And I didn't look at your actual thing to go, oh no, we're talking about the kids, because that's one of the things that's why we call it the common bond and not the avatar, because it can mean sometimes it's parents for kids. That's a good example of sometimes we have to go to the kids, although that is really targeting the parents, but it's what commonly bonds them together so that people associate it the right way.
So should I, as I go forward with, because I mean, clearly I need to kind of start back at PVC one, but should I just go with kids or should I go with
I'd
no
say
common
children.
bond?
I'd say
Children?
children.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of the only thing. That's
Yeah.
kind of
So
the piece why it's not really working.
there's been a disconnect because of that,
Yeah.
basically, between that and the image. And then coming back to the image, you know, like if you were going to do this, what do you think? Like, what would you be looking for an image for testing purposes?
I think what you had was actually right on point.
Okay.
Um, an image with 2 to 3 people usually does a little better than one, and you have 3 in there. And I mean, this is a social platform, right? So it has shown that when there's 2 to 3 people, not more than 3, that the pictures are optimal that way. It's something about, what looks natural and normal, right? It's people taking pictures. So I'd say this picture really works
Okay.
if this is in fact the age group that you're targeting.
Yeah. Yeah. And more or less it is. I mean, the majority of our kids that enroll, the majority of our student base in general is probably, 6 to 8 years
Yeah.
old. So,
And Greg had mentioned something in the chat. I just want to clarify this because he said, well, how about saying how parents go from kids with pain to ultimate benefit? The problem with that is you can't pull that apart and use the elements in the right way later on. This is some of the things that we also ran into when we had Mike on in the first few days, where he was attempting to use a common bond and a pain together, and you couldn't be able to separate those. And so it makes it a little more difficult. You combine them after your test, but not during the test. So this is kind of the only thing, Curtis, is I have to apologize that I somehow missed the context of, I don't know if I didn't look at it. Maybe I was scanning it so fast, trying to get through different ones when they're in the group.
Yeah, I mean, I was approaching it that way as well because I thought I had a pretty good handle on it. So it's not, I mean, it takes two to tango. I guess the last thing that well, at the bottom here in green, I have, sort of some refined ideas for what to work with. So,
Well, I mean, it's obviously worth testing the other ones as well. I mean, you choose, but use children instead because that's going to change the context completely.
yeah. Okay.
So the good news is you may, have not necessarily done this one where it's really working, but you learned how to do it.
Right.
For a couple $100. And now you have a good ad that you're going to be able to use that's going to make you a lot more than that.
Yeah, and I got, from the first test, I got one lead and they signed up both kids. So I'm pretty much breaking even for my ad spend at this point. So it's not the end of the world. And it's always, it's always you either win or you learn, or sometimes a combination of both. So a couple bucks is worth learning how to refine your process. So
or you could go buy another crappy course from someone else with name recognition and
right.
money on that and go through that stuff. That happens too.
I've done my fair share of that. So no additional comments there. All right. I appreciate it, guys. If anything else comes up, I'm in the group as much as I can be right now.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Curtis.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, bud.
Cheers,
Putting
bud.
you back in. Okay, Alex.
Do you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, great.
I'm just putting Curtis back in. Okay, so what do we have?
I have the problem. I have really tested lots of approaches in the past, and my niche is, I think, very different from the stuff all the other people are selling, because books are like, $4. You don't have to have a whole huge process to analyze, am I buying or not? It's just like, do I buy the coffee or not? So I think and the other problem is, we need really low CPCs and high CTRs. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense that the conversion ends, because if I like $10, $15 for a reader, it's just not worth it. So it has to be like, or I said I learned a lot, because this focusing on pain and problems, I think, is very important, and I maybe didn't do that enough in the past. But also, when you write a mystery or when you blurb a mystery, you give the pain and the problem, but you don't give the solution, because you want to make it exciting. You know what I mean? So I think there are some things I have to adapt for my niche, which are different from your usual clients, and I think I need some time to test different approaches. But like what we did, like dog goes from A to B with challenge X and no buttons and everything, just gave me like double the usual price I have and like half the CTR. So this is clearly not the way to go, because
Also,
I would spend like $20 for a reader. Sorry.
relax.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just trying to give you
I can understand, but I can understand. And what we've got happening here is that you didn't mention something. You were saying pains and problems, and you said solution, but you didn't say benefits. So I also want to check on some of that stuff too, as well. But I think the best way is, obviously, this is not the only way, but one of the things going on here might be that you're just using the Facebook news feed for now, which is going to make your CPMs go much higher. And it's only for the test. Here is the issue. Remember that this is a test, and this is not the way it's going to be used and formatted in your regular ads. You're just doing the test. And if you're expecting sales just from this, then your expectation is off from what we wanted to originally instill in you. So
Oh,
what
I
we
understand.
really want to do is get the messaging, and then we can make it better. We can add in other placements where your CPMs are going to go much down. Your cost per link click is going to go down. And I wouldn't so much worry about those cost per link clicks, because even if they're higher, if you have a better conversion rate, then that's going to make up for it. So some of those things will be changing from how you might have been used to looking at it, because cost per link click, unless it's exorbitant, which you wouldn't even know until you did a regular ad instead of a PPC test, you wouldn't know. It's not as important as what others might
But
say
if
it
in the
is.
PPC test I'm having like double the usual and half the usual CTR, then clearly something is not optimal. I understand that I can still work on it and it will get better and everything. But for now, the test comparing to my old ads just didn't look too good. That's all I'm saying. I'm not complaining or
Okay.
anything, and I know I have to go further and everything. But just for now, it doesn't look very promising.
What test are you on right now?
Well, I did the 1 and 2, and I stopped it after the 2 because the results were so bad that I didn't. And actually in the 2 in the body copy of the 2 I already had the challenge in there, just not in the first line. So I figured, okay, I'm not going to waste another $200 to, you know what I mean? So I tested until the benefit, but I didn't do the third round with the challenges with these ads because they were just so expensive that I didn't want to burn any more money. And I figured that if the pain and the benefit were clearly not what I should have, then adding the challenge wouldn't make that much of a difference. And I already had the challenge in the body copy. My translation of the challenge, because you helped me with the translating it to the story, like a dog goes from trying to protect his owner, blah blah, So it was a bit different to your usual way you do it, like how to go from X to Z. We had a different text. What are you thinking? What the hell? Or what?
So you're making some assumptions about how this is going to turn out based on what's happening right now. And I can tell you, just because you didn't test the challenge yet, so you're using a challenge in your body copy that may not necessarily be the one that people respond to in the way that you are writing it. So that is one variable. Two, like I said, with your placements and those added in, that's going to change for your regular ad. Three, just because the pain and the benefit are low doesn't mean that the challenge
Okay.
is being added in isn't going to change that. And on top of that, let me ask you this. Are you doing a different event optimization than you usually do?
No, I'm doing the same event because this is another difference we have, because I'm sending traffic to Amazon, and so everybody in the book world who doesn't have their own store, they do traffic ads. So I'm doing traffic ads, so I can't optimize for sales, because I can't have the pixel
Well,
on
you
the Amazon.
you just can't track it.
Yeah, you can, but it doesn't optimize then, I tried this as well in the past, but you don't have an event where Meta can optimize for. So then you have prices like $1 per click or something. If it can't learn, because it doesn't get the info who is buying.
You're getting ahead of yourself. Okay? Hear me out
Yeah.
for a moment. Hear me
Okay.
out. Listen to me. If you optimize for purchase, yes, your CPMs are going to be higher. Yes, your cost per link click is going to be higher. All of those things are true. And you are right. You cannot optimize and learn. But that is not the point of this test. The point is to find the messaging. Then you can go back to those other optimizations if you like, once you now know what the optimal messaging is, so that you don't have those extremely high CPMs and cost per link clicks. But you're assuming what's happening is what it is versus what it's going to be, and you're stopping. I can't help you if you don't continue.
No, but I'm just trying to adapt it to my business field,
Show me what you have. Show me your ads manager.
How do I share again? Hold on.
Down at the bottom, it says share.
Yeah, okay, 1 second. Here we go. So it's in German. No, it's even in English because I did the English ads. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the ads I made. I'm gonna make it bigger here. Hold on 1 second. How do I get this away here? So you can see the whole ads. Okay, so this was the text we made together.
I got it.
And I did the no button at the bottom. So mostly I did what you said. And
Why
yeah,
didn't you put the link at the bottom of the text in the body copy though?
that's another issue. Our links are like tracking links on Amazon, and they're very long and they look terrible. So usually you put them in here.
Doesn't matter. That what
If you have-
Facebook
if you
does
have-
is it truncates the link to what's a small part that's visible and the rest of it is not visible.
If I put it in the body copy, I have all 4 lines of it. If I put it there.
Like I just said, when
Okay.
you put it in the body copy, Facebook automatically truncates it and shortens it to where it only shows one line of the link. So it might be really, really long. I understand what Amazon product
Yeah,
pages look
okay.
like, right? They're really, really long. They're not going to show like that in your body copy. Okay. So that might help when it comes to link clicks. And so the other thing here, so let's go back for a moment if you can X out of this. And I want to look at the numbers real quick. If you can X out of this, I want to see your metrics. Okay, so can you hit
This
maximum?
was this
Yeah.
is last 7 days, so this is maximum. So this was the PBC2 test, so to speak.
Can you go back to the pane one first, please? Yeah, so
Yeah,
you're still optimizing for cost per link click instead of purchase. And this is,
Yeah, that's what I said, because I'm doing traffic and not sales.
I
really-
know,
I
but
really-
I've explained this, Alex, I've
Yeah.
explained this many times.
Yeah.
Does it not make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense because I tried the sales in the past and I like it's not
Really high
it's not
costs?
sorry, no, it's not cost, but it never leaves the learning phase because it's just going nowhere, you know. So you're getting
I know,
whatever,
I
and-
understand that. Alex, listen to me. Nick, hold on. Alex, the learning phase does not matter for a PBC test. You're not going to keep it running after the fact. You're only doing a short test. It's not even going to be able to track. It's not going to go into active mode. It's not going to continue to optimize.
no.
You're not going to leave it running.
Yeah, but to try that to try message, what difference does it make, you know? If you're just looking which is the best message, that's not the point if it's sales or traffic, you know. I figured.
I couldn't, you're breaking up there a little bit. So what did you say?
I said if you're just testing the message, what kind of click through we get for the message, I figured it doesn't make a difference for the CTR all if it's traffic or sales, and if you're just comparing which one is better, you know.
I have $100 million plus more in spend that says it does make a difference.
Okay.
So I'm telling you, like you're choosing to do things outside of the guidelines I gave you. I can't help you if you're not going to do what I'm showing you.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to adapt it to my little world, and this is what I figured. It may be wrong, of course. I'm not saying I did it all right. Obviously, it's not right. Otherwise, it would be working better. But that's how it is, and let's not waste everybody's time here. Let's just go on, and I'm gonna keep trying and figure it out. And use the things which make sense to me. Is this okay?
Okay.
Because traffic makes no sense. Sales ads makes really no sense to me. I tried this in the past, and I talked to like everybody in the authors are also we're also talking, and sales ads are just going nowhere. You know, it cannot even know is this good or bad. So it just gives it to anybody, and you get any kind of results. Because it's not,
Maybe
it
if I
doesn't have
can
feedback.
just jump in and have a shot at explaining it from my perspective here. You know how if you set a sale and you're exactly right, because they go to Amazon, you can't fire an event that then tells Facebook it was a sale. Well, it's the same with traffic. because you can't put a pixel on Amazon and track the traffic either. So that problem exists for both of those types of ad campaigns that you might set up, both the
No, it
sales and
doesn't.
the
No, it
traffic.
doesn't, because in the traffic campaign it optimizes for the cheapest link clicks. And I don't know who of you was saying it yesterday. There's usually a correlation when there is a cheap link. The higher the CTR and the cheaper the link clicks. Usually, in 80% of the cases, the conversion is also higher. So this is the next best thing we can
I think
optimize.
Chris is
So,
putting a
so,
CTR all on the
so
CTR link.
Sorry? The CTR, we are using the CTR link click, not the CTR all, because there's another issue. I understand completely what you're saying. Okay, CTR all, we want to get him into the ad and we want to sell him in the body copy, but for a book for $4, you don't need like 20 lines to convince him that it might be good and he should consider. You just send him to Amazon and so I think there's a difference there. If you're selling something for $200 or something like a cup of coffee, I don't think you don't have to. You have to write a whole novel in the body copy. So I think there are some differences, and I'm just going with my gut feeling. I'm not
yeah,
saying it.
and it makes sense for you to go exactly with what you think's the right thing to do, and you should absolutely do what you think is right. What we're here to do is to let you know that there are our experience has also given us data-based information about the right way to go, so that we don't have to rely on gut feeling. Because the problem with gut feeling, of course, is that you end up having not success.
Yeah.
So I'll only just go over this once, so you're right. We don't want to take up a lot of other people's time, but if this is beneficial for everyone else, the reason that Facebook has the sale objective as a campaign is so that you can say to Facebook, find me the people who are most likely to buy. That is the difference. That's why it's different than ticking. If it wasn't different, they wouldn't have two different categories. So the reason the two categories exist is you want Facebook to show the ad to the people most likely to buy, and they are the people that we want to test the messaging on. We don't want to test the messaging on the people who aren't likely to buy, because all we'll then do is find out what messaging appeals to people who aren't likely to buy. So right from the outset, the reason we say to go for a sales objective is because we want to put that messaging in front of the people who are most likely to buy. So when you find out which pain, benefit, and challenge combination is the best for those people, once you've got that message, now you can place it in front of them, but you can also place it in front of other types of objectives, knowing that the message you've got was tested on the people most likely to buy. That is the reason that we do that, and it is absolutely different when you tick those two boxes from the outset. So that's number one. Number two, that's why at the beginning we also said the main point here is not CTR link click through, and it's not conversions. If you get them, it's icing on the cake, but the whole point of the test is to find the winning pain benefit challenge combination, so that you've then got that to be able to run with across multiple things, different placements, different ad types, Reels, TikTok, YouTube. Like, it spreads across because you've gone through to find out what works. That's the reason we set it up that way. And the other just last point I'd make about you're not writing a novel here to convince people to buy anything. In fact, what you're doing in your particular case is the same. That is the same as a movie trailer. That would be like someone who's written a movie saying, "Oh, we're not going to be bothering making a 5-minute trailer just to sell a movie that's $26 to go and see, or $18. We're just going to put a picture and that's it. No trailer." But they make a trailer, and the people watch the trailers and they like the trailers, and that's the reason they decide to go and buy the movie. So that is the reasoning for why we do it. And I think other than that, I don't know how else to explain it, but can I just ask, with me having explained it that way, do you understand at least what we're saying?
Yeah, I totally understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, given that we're at the time here, Chris, we probably need to get to your training, but we can maybe carry on the conversation in the Facebook group to talk about what your next steps would be. But why don't we wrap it up and Chris, jump into your training now?
Thank you anyway.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, there's a lot more to unpack there at some point later to get handled, but you know.
But just to get again to everyone's point, and I only take 30 seconds to say it. Everyone comes into to this with a whole lot of experience and also assumptions about how things work because of what they've been told elsewhere, and we totally get that. And so a lot of the effort we actually find having to do is not just teaching people a new way to do it. We've also got to help them unlearn all the other messages that have been received or experiences they've had in order to be able to do it this way. And that can be sometimes the thing that catches people off guard. So it's ultimately it's a very simple process, but unlearning all the other stuff can be actually what's tricky. So I reckon everyone's doing really well, and I get it, but you know, here's the process. So
Well,
now
it
let's see
seems
what
as
the
though
next
there's
step
an
is.
understanding that like they're trying to optimize and think it's going to optimize long term, but that's not the point of the test. The test is going to be turned off after you validate the messaging. The bottom line is this: link clicks do not work. Link clicks do not sell anything. It takes thousands of link clicks to get any type of sale for anything because Facebook is not going to people who show purchase behavior. Do not ever use link clicks, period. Like ever. It's worthless. And so there's a ton of authors out there that are saying this to people in groups, like just use link clicks and go to Amazon, and they get some results, but they're sending cheap traffic. It's nowhere near, you're not utilizing the power of Facebook to find the buyers. So with the argument that says, well, if it can't track the purchase, so it can't optimize long term. I understand that, but we're still just testing the message. Once you get a good message, you can go back to other types of optimization that you can track, and it's going to work a lot better because the message is a lot better. But when you optimize for that, it's not necessarily going to work. So it clearly seems like, you know, there's times where, I mean, you guys got to trust me. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. This is so foreign and so different than everybody else. And I understand that. I mean, yeah, the unlearning what you have learned, like that's a part of it. And I know some of you get hung up on certain pieces, like being told, yeah, but I can't track. So how am I going to move forward with that? And the answer is you're not going to move forward on that ad. So don't worry about it ever optimizing, because you're never going to get it to the active mode to track and convert. It's about developing the message. So, yeah. Alex got it. Cool. All right. And we'll continue to work on this, Alex. We're not done yet, right? We just have to get in this other training. But yeah, I've gotta be able to make sure you guys can suspend some of your biases and just trust me through some of this, regardless of the arguments you've been told by others. I mean, heck, you could go follow Ryan Dice's training right now that's getting everybody less than 1% CTR alls and usually 0.0 something percent link click-through rates with his click block testing or whatever it is that he ripped off from Mint CRO. And you could be making next to nothing. And that's a training that was relevant about 15 years ago, and it's not now, you know? I mean, and look at the name cachet Ryan has. Dumbest thing they ever did was let me go. I was running their ads and making them so much freaking money they didn't know what to do with. Yeah. Okay. So let's hop into this. So here's what I'm going to do today. Here's the thing. Reset. I gotta get out of my neuroticism, because my neuroticism allows me to be frustrated beyond when I should be. Here's the thing. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead. You got something there, don't you?
Oh no, that was for you. I'm going to say, remember the space. That's all I was going to say.
Woosah. Yeah. So, all right. So here we go. Here's what you got to understand. Some of you actually in the chat, so I know how to do this here. If you have gone through my 5D ad formula, my 5-dimensional ad product, it costed $37. You bought it, you've gone through it. Put a 1 in the chat for me so I know how many people have learned the elements already. And if you haven't, put a no. Okay. Bad boys. What is that front? Wait a second. What did I say? They're the bad boys. Oh, Wusa. Yeah. Okay. So we got Murray, no turn. Okay, so we only have a few. And Greg, yeah. So in progress, cool. Can always use a refresher. Yes, no. Okay, so we have mostly. All right. So this is good. For those of you who don't have it, for those of you on this call, since you're a part of this message mapping workshop, I want you to email me at hello@codemethodology.com, because I want to be able to gift you that course, because it is a great thing to be able to do once you have all of your elements. And since you've, paid substantial amount of money for this one, I'm going to include that as a bonus for those of you who have not seen it yet, because I think it sets you up for a lot of success afterwards. Now, it's not crucial to have it before what I'm going to show you today, because I am going to show you a bit of what that is. And for those of you who've gone through 5D ads, some of this will be review, some of this will be new. Okay. So let's pop into this. All right. So obviously, as a lot of you know, we have, I'm sharing the screen right now. Can you guys all see that? Okay. So as we've been testing, you guys know 5 of these elements already, right? You have the pain, you have the benefit, and you have the challenge. What you also know is the common bond, which can be the thing that commonly bonds you and your avatar together. Or obviously, in the case of something like you're targeting parents for their children, that's the function of a common bond, which is why we don't just say avatar, right? And there are some other applications to it that you will learn later. Now, the next thing is you can see we've kind of got a negative column, right? Where it's like the pain, and then there's the internal conflict. Now, the internal conflict is just the internal pain. It's the feeling that comes from what happens in the pain. So something happens, you feel sad, or you feel fear, or you feel disgusted, or you feel angry, right? That's all internal conflict. It's the feeling or emotion that comes from experiencing the pain. And so in your full headlines, there are times where we insert that word in there to give it more color, and it helps, but it's also more important to use that in your body copy as well to empathize with somebody so that they know how you feel. Okay. Then the common bond, obviously, the common bond is probably the one experiencing the pain. So the pain helps us identify who the common bond is, right? That's what you created your offer for in the first place. Obviously, we've got the benefit you test. Then the same thing with the internal benefit. It's the same thing here, right? It's just the positive side of the feeling or the emotion that comes from experiencing the benefit, the feeling that they want to experience, fulfillment, happy, excited. That's more of an emotion, although that could work. Proud, so there's a lot of these positive feelings, and all we're looking to do is say, okay, what's the benefit? Okay, how does that make them feel? That's literally your question. What's the pain? How does that make them feel? And it's a one word answer, not a statement that says, I feel like I need to go back to sleep and try it again the next day. Like it's one word. Okay. Now, obviously, as you already know, you also have the ultimate benefit, and that's the other element you've learned, which in the benefit column, this is all about what they want and what they want to experience, and then the ultimate outcome, right? So that's pretty self-explanatory. So the only new one you're learning here is internal benefit, internal conflict, right? You know these. So then there's a couple others that just give it a little bit more scope. And one is obviously the challenge, but here's why we put these in this line, because this is all about pertaining to the offer, right? The challenge, in fact, half the time people create an offer because they experience challenges with other similar solutions, right? And so they create a new solution, because of the challenge. That's why these are very closely related usually. But at the end of the day, solution might be, like in Alex's case, it's a book, right? And with Curtis, it's martial arts training. Notice I didn't say product name. Notice I didn't say brand. And notice I didn't say some specific technique. It's if you're having lower back pain, you're probably looking for a chiropractor or chiropractic care or spinal, a readjustment. That's all solutions being offered in the marketplace, okay, which give people a benefit, right? So it's oftentimes like, experience a pain, you want a solution to solve the problem so that you get a benefit. So if you are experiencing, weight loss, right? If you're, you want to lose weight, then the solution is either a workout program or a diet program or a combination of the two or some other therapy that helps you lose weight, right? Which the solution is, those things that allow you to burn fat or whatever the benefits are of losing weight. So this is the distinction, and this is why I'm spending a lot of time on it, because it sounds quite self-explanatory, but here's the distinction. There is a solution you have, and then there is a mechanism. Now, the mechanism, shortened from unique mechanism, is more about the explanation of how your solution is either delivered, how it works, or how it was made. Okay? It's the thing that makes you different. So here's the question you ask yourself. If you present your offer to someone and they say, what makes your offer different from your competition? Your explanation is going to be referring to your mechanism. So Curtis, with your martial arts, all right, if someone says, why should I choose your martial arts over some other store? What are you going to say? And then whatever you explain, you condense that down into an element. And it may be that you have a special name for it, a special process, and you might just have an explanation for it and it's already there, like Qigong or a certain type of Qigong, right? And the Qigong might be the mechanism, the unique mechanism, and then you get to explain more about Qigong in your body copy. It could also be on how you deliver it. So it may be that there's other Qigong trainers out there, but the way you administer it and deliver it and teach it is a unique way. Maybe. And maybe that's blasphemous to the, originator who taught you, because those styles are very disciplined, right? But that is, as an example, it can be how the product is delivered, or it can be how it works differently, or it can be a certain function or process that overcomes the challenge with other solutions. So that's oftentimes when you hear us talk about the challenge is like, what's the problem with other solutions? With martial arts, you might have tried karate. Well, the kid got really good at learning how to fight and he might have calmed down a bit, but he's still getting in fights. All right. We need to have him learn an internal martial art so he can channel his inner strength so that he doesn't feel compelled to always need to prove himself to other kids by getting in fights. And he has this silent confidence that allows him to dampen the internal anger or chaos or turmoil going on in him. The unique mechanism is much more about solving that issue. That's why Qigong might be your mechanism, because it's solving the problem of the kids still getting in fights. Now, I, for one, know that that's not really the real world case, because I took karate as a kid, and it actually, I wasn't fighting anymore. It actually gave me a bunch of confidence. But bad example, but the application is the same. So a lot of you right now, I want you to think about this with your offer and think about, okay, I created this offer. Do I know my competition? Do I even know who they are, right? And do I know the complaints, the common complaints that people have of them? So let's say you have competition that is selling their product on Amazon, or they're running Facebook ads. You have two places you can go to see the common complaints. Can any of you guess what that is? The comment section or the reviews? And you get to see what people say they have a problem with when it becomes, when they use that product. Okay, so Curtis, 100% get the mechanism. We're the only martial arts program that personalized with included private instruction. See, there it is, right? It's personalized and private instruction. And you might have a deeper conversation with someone in your body copy that talks about how you're personalizing that. Like, what are the deciding factors on how you personalize? That is your unique process. That is your unique mechanism. And so what we look to do with your mechanism is find a way to either give it a name or refer to it with a functional word. So here's what I don't want you guys to come up with. Here's a good example. A benefit-based mechanism doesn't work. That's what the benefit is for. So if you find yourself naming your unique process, something like my lead generating, my let's see. If we're in this vein of martial arts, right? So the mechanism here, that's yeah, because it's like, what are the specific benefits, right? Essentially, you're probably going to want to give it a name, but here's the difference. The name you give it needs to refer to function or process, not benefits. If you try to use a mechanism, here's a good example, P90X. What do they use? They use the term muscle confusion. That was their unique mechanism. P90X, the solution was a workout program. What makes it unique and different from others, which is what your unique mechanism is, was the concept of muscle confusion, where they were varying the types of exercises so your muscles never got used to the same type of exercise. Notice that the words muscle confusion did not say, muscle expanding or strengthening process, or getting ripped process, or things like that. It was referring to function or process. And so let's translate that for a moment to story. Okay. So what's the unique mechanism? Let's take some of the most well-known stories. Let's go with Star Wars for a quick moment, right? Star Wars, what's the unique mechanism in Star Wars? It's the Force, right? So in stories, there's always a sage or a guide that comes along to give the hero the unique mechanism or the plan, right? Do you notice in lots of movies where there's a point where they say, do you have a plan? Or the person says, I have a plan. Do you notice that's like in every movie you've watched? It's because they're following this hero's journey archetype, and the plan is the part that is the unique mechanism that's going to differentiate them from others who have failed before them. And so it's just like Yoda is the sage that comes along and gifts him the mechanism. Sometimes the sage or the teacher is in fact the unique mechanism for the story. When you say so-and-so meets a wise old wizard that, shows them the powers of whatever, right? So Nick, go ahead. I see you jumping in there.
I'm probably going to quote it wrong, but no, it's just more for entertainment value. The best line ever about that plan is in whatever Avengers movie it was, where Captain America is going, we need a plan of attack. And Iron Man goes, I have a plan, attack, and jumps out the window. Such a great line.
Oh my God. That's hilarious. But and down to the brass, like down to bare bones, that is in fact the function of it, right?
Yeah.
I have a plan, attack. The unique part is attack. So
Yeah.
the same thing happens where in a story, the unique mechanism might be the wise teacher that comes along and gives them the plan, or it might be the plan itself that they give them that is the unique mechanism. So Lord of the Rings, the unique mechanism is the ring, right? What is it? Game of Thrones, the unique mechanism is the dragons, because it's the thing that differentiates them, that makes them rise above the others. that makes them win the wars, right? So this is the concept you want to be thinking about. And this is a very important part of a story as well, where usually you have a sage that gives the plan, gives something, and then there's this unique thing that the hero now has to help them win in whatever quest or journey that they have. So Alex, thinking about that, with is there something in the story with the dog, with Athos, that someone gives him to be able to figure out the mystery, right? Is there a particular event or somebody that comes along and gives them a tip and gives them a clue, or leads them to the point of conclusion? And so whatever that is, that would play the role of the mechanism. It's the differentiator that allows the hero to win. So another example would be, I have a client that we've had for a long time that's a pet stain and odor remover. And the unique mechanism for them is the fact that it evaporates organic matter. It evaporates pee and puke and vomit and all of that stuff from animals or humans too, because it's a peroxide based type of mix. So it's a proprietary blend that has hydrogen peroxide in it, but it's also stacked with a bunch of stabilizers so that the hydrogen peroxide doesn't evaporate in just a couple minutes like it normally does by itself. And so the stabilizers allow the hydrogen peroxide to slowly extract that stuff over 24 hours. So you can actually get out all of the pee or vomit or whatever it is, even chocolate, wine, anything that's organic, and it extracts it slowly. So our unique mechanism is the peroxide-based blend, right? Because we have these unique stabilizers that allow it to not evaporate so fast, so it can evaporate all of the organic matter. So that's another way to think about, and my unique mechanism in that case would not be something like my stain lifting process, right? Stain lifting is a benefit, so we don't use that, right? So be very careful the distinction between your benefits and your mechanism, and don't mix the two. Benefits, it's all about the things they want. Mechanism is the unique process or function that allows it to be different. Okay. All right. Alex, 4-pawed sleuths instead of human investigators is my mechanism. Yeah. Okay. Yep. I like it. I actually do. I really do. Try to just think about that there for a moment. So in my case, Martina, could the mechanism be puzzle books as opposed to textbooks? Yes, it could be. It absolutely could be. Yes. Alex, a different way to solve a murder case. You're exactly right. So Talia, just thinking of a client's product, what if there isn't really a mechanism? Well, this is why they're having trouble. Because you need to be able to differentiate. The good news is if you find a way to have them differentiate. So here's what you're going to need to do, Talia. You're going to need to go to your client. You're going to say, what makes you different from your competitors? And then you say, what are the biggest complaints that your competitors say about them when you talk to them? Well, it's a course, but they're making sales, but we want more. That's fine. So what you have to do is look at, I'm actually going to do a workshop on differentiation soon as well for all of you. It's a separate paid workshop that we'll do. It's not that much. It won't even cost near what this is. It'll be worth all of you going through that exercise to do that as well. I'm thinking about doing that really soon. But when it comes, Kelly, take my money. Here I go. I just let the cat out of the bag, didn't I, Nick? I shouldn't have said that. But yeah, it's a course. So essentially with the course, you got to think about if other people if anybody else is offering that same course, and you need to go look at those other courses and find out what's different about them so that you can draw the difference between you and them. even if you really don't have it, like from a marketing perspective, you can always frame something differently that makes it look like it's different because you're using different pieces, even if it's not really different. And trust me, there's a very ethical way to do that. But that's another time. Okay. So that's essentially what it is, right? So at the end of the day, the pain is the summarized problem or the symptom of the problem. And you guys have already been doing that correctly. We've helped you with that. Internal conflict is the feeling or the state of mind, right? State of mind, confused. That could be one, confused state of mind. Verklempt. No, I'm kidding. Don't use that. But that's internal conflict. Benefit is the desired external result, emphasis on the external. Okay. The internal benefit is the feeling or state of mind that comes from the benefit. Pretty clear, just reviewing this here before we move forward. Ultimate benefit is the reason why they want the benefit. Okay. Get this benefit so you can enjoy ultimate benefit. Fix your back so you can pick up your kids and play with your kids, right? Get more energy so you can play with your grandkids, right? That's reason why you want the benefit. And you can always change what that ultimate benefit is based on what tested in your best benefit. That's the good news. You're not locked into your benefit, your ultimate benefit that you used during the PBC test. You actually can change that and test different ultimate benefits. And that's another tertiary part of the testing I'm going to be showing you tomorrow. Okay. Challenge, the primary objection or the problem with other solutions, right? So like we just talked about, like what is it that the other ones have and what makes yours different that doesn't cause them to have this same challenge, right? Or as we said, primary objection just costs too much, takes too much time, too much energy. Someone's like, I'm not going to do all that just to get that result. The solution, what type of product? So Curtis, martial arts training, or, specifically a martial art. And, let's see here. I'm thinking about some of you other ones here. Some of you are offering lead generation services, right? So that's the solution. Yeah. And then mechanism, notice this, the unique function of your solution. What do I want to do? It's all about differentiation. I had a guy, I was sitting on a gondola at Vail snowboarding one day. It was a few years back when we lived in Colorado and, enjoyed the mountains all the time. God, I miss that place. So the guy's in the gondola and he's like, oh, what do you do? And of course, I'm just like trying to not get into it. So I'm like, oh, I have an agency. And he's like, man, there's a lot of competition right now for that. You must not be making a lot. And I looked at him and I said, not if you know how to differentiate. And he's like, man, I've never heard that from anybody about their agency. Like, yeah. He's like, so I'm imagining you're doing well. I'm like, well, it's a Tuesday and I'm up here snowboarding. So what do you think? He was like, yeah, wow, tell me more. And he was all excited then the moment I was like, yeah, I'm not like all the other ones, so that was kind of funny. So, all right. Common bond. It's the avatar or the belief system to tap into, right? Which, that you can get pretty crazy with that stuff. Like I know I have a client who targets Orthodox Jewish women. And so they call them Frum women, F-R-U-M. And so he uses Frum women as his common bond and sells them Jewish training, right, from a rabbi. He works with a rabbi as his marketer. And so there's lots of ways you can tap into that type of thing. I had a guy who was selling clothing for Muslim weddings. And I said, is there a particular name for the Muslim wedding? He told me the name. I can't remember it now. It was like 4 or 5 years ago. And he said, yeah, you actually call it this. I was like, use that as your common bond. And he was like, oh my gosh. He reported back a few days later, was like, oh my God, my click rates are 3 times higher than what they used to be. So the common bond, the definition of it, the first level is either to define the avatar or the person related to the avatar, such as if you have children, right, and you're targeting parents, you might talk about the child as the common bond. And there's a few other applications of that, right? I used to sell some insoles, and my common bond was distance runners. And then I tested different common bonds like marathon runners, distance runners, and seeing what they respond to. So you can do a lot of that as well, right? It's not always just the avatar. That's the first level of it, but there's many ways to commonly bond with your client by saying something that signals they know that you know, and you know that they know, right? So there you go. Curtis got our first bit of snow in Colorado today. Oh, Curtis, I'm foaming at the mouth. I've already got my passes. We'll be in Colorado. Yeah, Nika. It's a Muslim wedding. Yes, Davina, exactly. Nika. I don't remember exactly how it was, but that was the word. And so he used a phrase like at my Nika, like, or I, my clients, have their Nika get benefit without challenge, and it worked incredibly well. He was super happy, right? Okay, guys. So now what we're going to do is here's what happens. You now have your PBC. So then what you're going to want to do is, because I'm going to give you this PDF I'm going to upload this to the site for all of you to have these slides. Then you're going to open up a Google Doc and you're going to paste in a lot of these formulas, and you're going to also insert in what you choose. You see here, once you get your pain benefit challenge, which we test typically with a common bond, sometimes not, then we're like, okay, let's define our internal conflict, define our internal benefit. We might have to say solution in some cases, but then also it's the mechanism, right? You might be adding the mechanism in there. So here's how this plays out when we do full headline formulas after our PBC test. So here's one from Financial Advisors. Okay, you notice how I have cut off the page name to protect, although I just accidentally showed you, no big deal, to protect them, because I don't like, my clients getting ripped off, which is why, obviously people are like, give me examples. I'm like, I got to be careful, because would you want me to share your example that you're still using and somebody else rip you off? You can always argue that it's publicly available anyway to go look at your ads, and that's true, but I do not want to be the reason for, upsetting my clients by violating their confidentiality, right? So think about this. From stuck to 7 figures. Stuck, people feel stuck, so I use the internal pain right away, right? Which works because my common bond as a financial advisor helps me understand what they mean by being a stuck financial advisor, right? Being a financial advisor who's stuck. And the rest of this sentence, the rest of this headline gives enough context to understand what I'm talking about. From stuck to 7 figures, right? So benefit, 7 figures benefit as a financial advisor, common bond. Here's how modern mentorship, that is the name they gave to their unique mechanism, modern mentorship. They were attempting to draw the difference between traditional marketing methods and mentoring and how they do it today digitally. It worked well, right? Paves the way for freedom and growth, which is really, you could just say ultimate benefit. I wanted to get, specific that yes, freedom and growth. When we did testing, PBC testing, freedom and growth were the challenge 1 and challenge 2, because we did them separately in the PBC test, but they were number 1 and number 2 when it came to the testing with the CTR-ALS. So when I did the final headlines here, which I did a handful of different headline formulas, this was one of them, and I had room to add the second challenge. I also tested it with just challenge 1 and challenge 2 separately. And I found that when I come to them for this particular time, that it worked better. It doesn't always work out that way, but it's worth testing. That's the good news, is you don't have to repeat your challenge test to use the second or the third winners in your challenges. You already have the data. So that's one of the things when I show you tertiary testing tomorrow, how we arrive at that, okay? How we get there, okay? And then you notice the below creative, you notice it's a little bit different, right? You've got I've got 2 elements here, and then I've got solution down here, which usually I have tested it to where I'm pretty much just shortening this. And then I'm also trying different combinations down here so that I'm giving more scope. But what I have found is the closer I keep things with pain, benefit, challenge, common bond, and mechanism in the above and the below creatives, the better they work, the higher click rates we get. There is something about changing the message too much here that lowers click rates. And I think it comes down to this. I think someone reads this, right? They're like, okay. And then they look at the image and they're like, okay. And then they come down here and they're like, well, that's not necessarily what I just read, right? But because we have modern mentorship, same, and financial advisors down here, and then I'm giving them a little more scope of saying training and mentoring for financial advisors. I'm kind of restating what this is. It worked really well. Okay. So that's one example. David, thanks for this integration with 5D. When I ran through 5D, my attempts were clunky. After MM makes it more sense. Yeah, message mapping filled in some gaps. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be reworking some of that training too. Steven, same. I'll be more effective now. Absolutely. Yeah, that was a beta course. I mean, that's like, I'm going to redo it and probably raise prices on that as well. How many different structures do you typically test initially once you have your winning elements? We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. We're going to get into a lot of that tomorrow. Okay. But I mean, as a short answer, typically 3 to 5 or 8, depending on my market and my how big my market is, how much ad liquidity I have available to me, right? How big of an audience. Okay. So that's that one. Next one. This is one I did for a buddy of mine who's a fitness trainer. Look at this. This is a great example of a mechanism, right? This is the exact 3-step process in single quotes, emphasizing the mechanism. You don't have to emphasize the mechanism every time, but we did for this one. And it worked really, really well. This typically got like a 10% CTR all, sometimes an 8, depending on the audience we were using. And it was actually just a live video that he did. But you see here, mechanism personal trainers use. His common bond was personal trainers because he's teaching personal trainers to teach online rather than in person, right? And use to benefit, right? Use to get clients online. That's the benefit, get clients online. And stop doing limited one-on-one sessions. Stop pain, which is the limited one-on-one sessions that make you frustrated and want to be able to find a way to do it online where you can scale out instead of having to do one-on-one because you're locked into, one-on-one training and you can only be with one person at a time. You can't scale that. And this worked really well. Okay. And you notice this was just a live where it wasn't like an ad. It was a post. It was like a live that he did. He had no below creative headline. Genius, by the way, for people doing it these days. Unpublished posts that don't have a below creative headline. They look nothing like an ad. You just got to have really good body copy because you're going to have to click see more. That's the only way you can move forward to read, but we prefer that. So we do a lot of unpublished posts as well. So that's something to think about, but you need to have really good body copy to do that, right? So here is the pet stain and odor remover one I've been telling you about, and my cat makes a cameo appearance. We literally were struggling for creatives at one point. This is back when we were in Aspen, and that's my cat. Well, let me be technically correct. That's my wife's cat, and he was a package deal with her. And we put this one was one of the other brands that has the same formulation that was specific to cats. See, he used a common bond of cats. He had one that was called My Pet Peed, right? And that was all pets. But cat owners are very particular. They're like, well, a lot of things that are for dogs and other animals don't work for cats because their urine is so strong, it's really hard to get up, yada, yada. But we knew it worked, so we literally created a new brand called Perfect Potion, right? You can see it here, right there. And so we just put it next to our cat, and the cat's looking at me like, how long do I have to sit here and do this, right? How long do I have to sit here while you take your picture? But I mean, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this particular ad. You see 823 comments, 708 shares. And this is a little more direct. You can see we've got like the offers of like discount starter pack. Like we have like the name, product name, and a discount. We don't do that very often, but for this one, it was people had been exposed to it. It was more of a retargeting ad. So we did. Now you see here, this is one of the ones where we found that the pains, they all scored really close to each other in the PBCs. So cat pee, puke, spray, even odor, right? So we had 4 different pains, and we decided to just stack all of them in because they were one-word lines. This is the luxury that you have after your PBC test, where if you have a phenomena happen where your click rates are very, very close to each other, you can look to stack in some of them together and see how they work. Okay, so this was a test and it worked out well, so we continued with it, right? And you see here, this overcomes pain, even pain, and never challenge, right? Never comes back. That's the issue with a lot of pet stain and odor removers is the stuff comes back eventually. And there's a whole scientific reason I'm not going to get into explaining that. But then check this out. No need to scrub or wipe. That's the challenges. That's the problems with other solutions that people have is they have to scrub and wipe with other stuff. And here we're just like, the mechanism is just spray and walk away. So we're not necessarily describing the mechanism as like our name, like our peroxide-based proprietary blend, but we're referring to how the mechanism works, their application of it, how it's delivered, right? You're delivering the spray and you're walking away. So there's a distinction here. You might give your mechanism a name. That might be one way to say your mechanism. But there's also another way with your mechanism that says, I'm going to refer to the functionality of how it's delivered, like spraying and walking away. And that works too. So your mechanism, the point of it is to mention that there is a difference between your product and other products. Okay? So you can be a little creative here in terms of referring to the function, and you can test different things there as well. So that is a part of a later testing phase if you like. Steve, congratulations. Was a cool wife judging by that cat. Martin, in most PBC testing with these formulas, are you again only looking at CTR all or taking other KPIs like sales, CTRs, etc. when making decisions? In post PBC testing, we are looking at conversions, cost per conversion, and ROAS. Yeah, it's only in the CTR all is in the PBC test. After the PBC test, you don't pay attention to CTR all as your main metric. It's still always something you want to pay attention to, but it's not the one you make decisions with. If the CTR all is incredibly low, then that tells you that your message is not probably landing very well. But if you're getting results, then that means it is landing well. So, like I said, we spend so much money. We spend between $5 and $10 grand a day on these brands with this particular product and brand, and the other one as well, the PetPed one, that like our CTR alls are like 1.5 to 2, but yet our cost per result is we're making money on the front end. So, you're still the main decision-making metric is that cost and the return on ad spend. So yeah, just to note, the only place your primary metric of decision-making is the CTR all is in the PBC process. After that, you're going to switch over to results and returns. Okay. So eliminates pain 1 and 2. So I basically took a bit of the best ones here, and then I was going more for transactional stuff, which you can do, but you just don't always want to do that top of funnel. You want to do that more in your retargeting, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, if you understand that. Okay. So next one here. This is an ad I ran for a long time. And this is when iOS privacy just happened, Apple privacy, right? Here's why our Facebook ads still work, right? Here's why we still get benefit. That's the formula, okay? After pain and problem, right? iOS privacy updates. Technically, that was the problem that caused lower conversions, but people all knew what that problem meant. Just like if you said cancer, right? Diagnosis, they know what that means. And so it works the same way as a pain. So iOS privacy updates in the brain lights up in the same place of saying, that's a problem. I don't want to experience what that gives me. Okay. And ultimate benefit, which is, and consistently scale, right? That's my ultimate benefit. without finding new creative all the time, which is the challenge, right? Because everyone says, refresh your creative, refresh your creative. And I wanted to address that challenge specifically to tell people when you use ads that have better engagement rates, you win auctions and your ads last longer based on the auction scores that I showed you yesterday, which is what these types of headlines engineer anyway, is higher engagement and click rates because they get someone to click see more than it is just to click right away. Okay, so below creative, why benefit and ultimate benefit? So why our ads still work and scale after iOS updates, right? After problem or pain, without challenge, without always finding new creative. So let me just make sure, because it kind of is both, but the reason I try to draw these distinctions between problems and pains is if the pain is like a root cause, which the iOS privacy update is a root cause of the issues of getting lower results, less results, then I want to also state the problem sometimes. But the only time you use the real root cause problem is when everybody knows what it means. Everyone knows what that causes, right? That's the point of it all. That's why it's not always as clear when someone's like, well, what's the root cause? What's the pain? What's the problem? What's the difference? And I'm like, this is what really matters at the end of the day, is your brain responding to it saying, oh, I know what that means. I don't want that, right? The next one here is, this is leads for people getting Echo grants in the United Kingdom. You see here, common bond, rural homeowners now getting Echo grants. That's the solution they're looking for to get benefit, to replace insulation and heating systems. But challenge, right? But pay nothing, right? So benefit, but overcome challenge. So that's the formula. I'm just following the formula. But any of these words, the black words, I can change just fine, right? And for as long as they qualify, right? So as long as, that was just more of you reverse engineering this ad, but I could pretty much say, just start there. Now, common bond, get benefit, but challenge. Okay. Rural homes qualifying for insulation and heating grants, but pay nothing for it. So I'm just being very, 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 and I didn't have chances to block all of this out, but I'm being very transparent with the benefits, common bonds and benefit and challenges is exactly the same down here. This particular, you see 380 comments, 70 shares, that consistently gets us like $15 to $20 leads all day long, and they're very happy. Okay. Another one here. This is I tend to talk about the mom of an addict, like that particular one. So as a common bond, right? And the common bond signaled the pain. Mom of an addict. That signals the pain. When you say mom of an addict, you know the pains that are associated with that. You know that an addict acts out, lies, causes fights and issues, screaming matches, arguing, they're defiant, they don't do what they say they're going to do. We know all of those things. So the mother sees mom of an addict, and right away they're like, oh my God, that's me. I know what that feels like. So what we get to do when we can accomplish the pain within our common bond, which happens after the PBC test, but if you do it during the PBC test, it doesn't allow you to modularize the pains. But you notice I said powerless and worried. Okay, those were the two internal benefits, internal conflicts that tested well. So they're just internal feelings, right? But because they have scope and understanding to understand what the pain is through the common bond, I can go directly to the internal conflict. Okay, I went from internal conflict 1 and 2 to benefit, to being a warrior, who ultimate benefit inspired my son to turn his life around. And then, of course, even when challenge 1 and 2 did not work, and that got cut off, but it's fine to have things cut off, because a lot of people will go, oh, I want to know what that says. So they will click see more to read the rest. So we're not trying to have you always manufacture some fake open loop. But if you do have more elements that complete the thought, it's okay to keep those in there even if they don't show up. Because in some phones, the whole parentheses even part isn't even going to show up. And you see down here at the bottom, I'm having them go to a guide. So I have little brackets around it. That's the solution, is a guide. And then again, we're condensing powerless and worried from internal conflict to internal benefit to a warrior. It's actually benefit, not internal benefit. Being a warrior for your child, who ultimate benefit inspired my son to turn his life around. See the comments and shares there. We ran that one for a long time. And of course I do that. That's okay. If any of you, want to go check her out, she's awesome. She's got good stuff. Okay. Just for fun, I'm going to throw back for you one of these so you see where we came from. So in around the middle of 2019, the summer of 2019, Facebook changed their newsfeed, their mobile newsfeed, from having 7 lines of text on a phone to what you see now, just under 3. And I want you to see how this evolved. So when I was running digital marketers ads, notice how I had 6 lines here. Sometimes it was 6, sometimes it was 7. But what it allowed me to do is I was able to metaphorize, create metaphors, and use more words in my elements. Now, this is the crazy part. You see this, how we turn a one-hit wonder campaign. That's the pain, right? One-hit wonder campaign, which is a campaign that works once, doesn't work too well after that, into a customer factory, right? Into benefit. Customer factory is the metaphor customer factory that endlessly generates new customers and repeat buyers. Okay, that's the ultimate benefit without being in perpetual testing mode. That's the challenge. Do you know how much fun it was back in the day to have that much room to write these headlines? Here's the good news. You can still do that on other platforms. You can still use that on Instagram with text on your creative. You still can do that. You just can't do it in the Facebook newsfeed anymore and have all of that show. Now, they are experimenting with some people giving them 5 and 6 lines again. So that's why some of you see your second paragraph showing on your test. That's great. That's more context. You should be happy about that because you get to give them even more elements. And the more elements we have found correlate to higher click rates. More elements, more context, more specificity. So the old traditional way of marketing was to try a very broad message that wasn't that specific and run it to everybody, which caused very, 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 very low click rates. And people were competing to try to get a low cost per link click. But as we know with the system, with Facebook's algorithm and its auction system, that's the worst thing you could ever do. So now we need to have a very, 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 very specific message where the algorithm understands the context and says, oh, these people over here are going to respond to that message based on their behaviors. So you're enabling the algorithm to go find you the people by putting these elements in your ads. I wonder if a lot of you understand the power of what I just said. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But think about that. At some point, you're so specific, you don't need targeting. You don't need to use lookalikes. Don't need to use interest targeting. You might just have an age group and the location, country, or, local area. And Facebook reads through the text and goes, oh, yeah, that's these people. And it's getting better and better. Guess what has always worked well? These elements. Guess what's working even better these days as they've revamped their system? Elements, being specific. It's crazy how that works. Something I came up with years and years ago actually works better now than all the other stuff that works worse now. Just a concept to think about there. All right, a couple more, and you guys are going to get all these formulas to use. Here's how even common bond. Here's how even complete beginners. Notice how that's who he's targeting. Beginners who want to start investing in real estate without any savings. Big challenge to overcome. Our benefit, our investing in real estate, which is the goal, new beginners. They just want to start investing, right? Using my mechanism, private pairing method. So you notice he condensed the mechanism, the differentiation, to something unique where you go, private pairing, what's that? I want to know more about that. That's the power of a unique mechanism. If he did not have this mechanism in his headline, it would be like every other ad headline that says, learn how to invest in real estate. Are you wanting to learn how to invest in real estate? Question mark. Attention, beginning real estate investors. Learn how to invest in real estate without any savings. And you would look like everybody else. But now you have something unique with your mechanism. Private pairing method. His method is where he gets 2 to 3 people together in his group, and they're responsible for certain roles to make all of this work. It's genius. It works well. But the point of the marketing is to show the difference. So you can find words like that that mean and refer to what your function or process is. Notice it didn't say my get big profits method, right? That's a benefit-based mechanism, you know. You want to use function for your mechanism. Leave the benefit where it's at. All right. So you see how just kind of, you know, because this is a video, we had to have a button, so a lot more got cut off. But what was the important part there? If they read all of this, the mechanism is the thing that's different, so I chose to spotlight the mechanism. These had like a CTR all of like 11 or 12, I think it was. And it was like a 3-minute video. Pretty dang good, okay? And I'll even give you one of the ads I've been running recently. Last one. Most marketers, you wonder who I'm targeting, do not realize they reverse their ad scaling. So they reverse their ultimate benefit, which is another way to negate a positive, but I've already tested all of my pains and benefits and challenges, so I used it as a test. It actually works well. When we use the do not realize they can't get this thing, if they trigger this algorithm signal. What's that algorithm signal I'm talking about? You guessed it. Negative feedback, right? Which sabotages their ads. And, you know, ad scaling gets sabotaged if this algorithm signal is ignored by marketers. Common bond. I ran that for a long time. Made a lot of sales with it. So there it is. These are your headline formulas. And tomorrow, we're going to get much deeper into how you finish your test and what you do next and how to set up your CIA process and some of the social rules of engagement so that you eliminate negative feedback. Okay, so Davina, for the below creative, you have the 20. Is it a good idea to include any bonuses here? It could be an option for you, but remember, it depends on the awareness. You know, that was more of a retargeting ad. So, you know, using discounts, sales, and offering bonuses too early can actually cause you to not have success. Yeah. Greg, I'm curious as to how they work after iOS update. Oh, well, everyone had a tougher time with iOS updates, but there was an adjustment period and we outlasted everybody and still do well, and a lot of others left. So what does that tell you? So no CTA button. Well, I like not to use them because I get less negative feedback and I get higher click rates. But there are times where we use buttons, right? I mean, you see it here. Where's another one? Here, shop now. We used that. That was more transactional. And so there are times where we also use buttons. Definitely. Absolutely. So it's okay to use a button, but and I'm going to talk more about this tomorrow, but the first thing I typically do is not use a button and get my pixel trained on that particular message real well. And then I'll do other things like have buttons more for retargeting. Most of my cold traffic, top of funnel acquisition is usually no button. But when you're doing videos, they make you have a button. So oftentimes when I do videos or reels, I will have to have a button. Martina, do we need to test the internal conflicts? No. So that's a good question, right? what I'm showing you tomorrow is not how you have to go and test every other element in isolation. You don't have to do a 9-phased, test where you're testing every single element. That is way overkill. Trust me, I've tried. It's dumb. It doesn't need to be done. It's more about, because once you know the pain, then you know what the internal conflict is. You don't need to test it, right? So is there times when I've in later phases where I'm using my ads and I might change the internal conflict with the same pain to see how it works? Sure. But actually doing an internal conflict test has never made much of a lift, right? Because the important part is to empathize with people. So it's really not necessary. Although if you really want to do it, you can. I'm never going to tell someone not isolate and test an element, Yeah, Curtis, I bought one of their products. Yeah, they're typically the high school diploma of marketing, whereas I would look at us for ads and say we are the PhD of Facebook ads, of social media ads and messaging. All right. Mike, yep, I had to do that because Facebook got rid of my audiences. Yeah, exactly, Mike. It does work when you have specific messaging going to broad audiences. Okay, got to jump. Thank you for today. Lots of learning. Right on, Greg. So is it okay to look like an ad? Well, that question of have to jet. Thanks, guys. Okay. We're going over creative testing tomorrow. So Greg, is it okay to look like an ad? There's a time and a place to look like an ad. Here's what I say to that. Your top of funnel cold traffic acquisition ads should never look like an ad, because you're going to get a lot less engagement because they look like an ad. Okay. So you want to build your warm audience of people, even post engagers, right? You want to build your warm audience of people through an ad that is not so direct. Okay. And then when you retarget all of them, you can make your ad look like an ad and you won't get a lot of negative feedback. Now, why is that? It's because your negative feedback comes at the top of funnel when they don't know you. But if they've read your ad and it's very relevant and they just were not ready to necessarily click through or buy, or the timing is off, but you've now built goodwill and affinity and rapport with them through your ad that was not pushy, that was not direct. And they're like, okay, this person's cool. Like, they're not pushy. They're not crazy. A lot of trust built there. So that when you do retarget them with an ad that may have text on image or a button, or you're doing a flash sale or a discount or a promo or all of these transactional type ads, they work just fine for retargeting. And you don't get negative feedback because you've already built up trust and rapport with them through your top of funnel ad, through your cold traffic ad that doesn't look like an ad. And this is why most ads that are transactional have a CTR all of 1 to 2 at best. But when you have a CTR all of 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 in some cases, then what's happening is all of those people are being put on your post engager retargeting audience. So you could be spending the same amount of money and you have an ad that gives you a 1% link click or 1% CTR all, which basically means out of 100 people, you are getting one person on your post engager audience. Or you could have a CTR all, let's say realistically, of 6. Well, that's basically giving you 5 more people, because let's say your CTR link click-through rate is 1%. Okay, so minus the 1% from the 6% and you got 5. So basically that means every 100 people, you're adding 5 people to your retargeting warm audience list who engaged with your post instead of just 1 for the same cost. And now you have 5 more people, and all of those people build up in your retargeting audience so much faster, and they're further along because you have body copy that's qualifying them, so that when you do retarget them with much more of a transactional ad, they work and they don't give negative feedback and they buy. So that's the idea. Greg, understood. Thank you. So great. Yeah, that is the big difference. It's like you're getting a better result now and you're getting better results downstream, downrange. So that concludes today's training. Tomorrow, I'm going to show you guys how to take a lot of this to full scale, how to test it, and also later on tertiary testing, how to finish out those tests. And should we do tertiary tomorrow? Nick, what do you think? Should we do tertiary tomorrow or should we do like the CIA stuff tomorrow? We've done it both ways. It almost doesn't matter. What's your preference?
I think CIA is good.
Okay. All right. We'll finish off with tertiary testing because that's more of like how you can continue to create more PBCs, which is the last great step. This way you can take, if you're finished with your challenge test tomorrow, you can actually take it into your next phases. Okay. So we'll do that. Tomorrow is CIA and Friday is going to be tertiary testing and we'll close it out. Okay. So great session today, guys. Very good questions. And yes, it is time for that, Stephen. Dr. Nick, do you want
for
to
reminding us? Yeah.
do the honors?
Okay, so what's going to happen is just on the one-on-ones, two things will happen. The first thing that's going to happen is I'm going to look over your tests, look into your ads manager, but look at it in the context of the offer that you've got, because we want to actually see how you're going to implement this. So that's a bit more than we've been able to do here because we've just been focusing on the ads. So I'll look at that and give you feedback and recommendations. If it makes sense for you, for your business, to be the kind of business that would work well in code methodology for you to learn to then take it to the whole full next step, then we can talk about that, and I can give you an invitation. When we do this, we actually do have a bit of a scholarship for people who come through Message Mapping Workshop to join code methodology, which is the full program, which I'll walk you through. But again, the first part of that whole thing is going to be going over the strategy of your PBC test and see how it works. The other thing that I'll be doing as well is asking for your feedback, because one of the things that I'm not sure how many courses you're aware of that have this level of expertise that run for this amount of actually total interaction and go for this time. And we do that because, one, we want to demonstrate the value that we have, but we also want to get feedback, and that's kind of part of the deal. So I will be asking you for your feedback. Ideally, if it's good feedback, you'll give us permission to use that to let other people know how effective you found the training. That would be part of that as well. So the calls are feedback, me strategically looking at your whole thing, and if it makes sense, we can take a bit of time talking about code methodology and get you enrolled in that. So I have limited times on my calendar as well. I need to go and check them actually and make sure that I've opened up any spots that I can. We'll send out a link for you to book a call with me, and it will be, obviously, the first people to book the calls are going to get the good spots. I also, you'll notice there are some unusual hours in there, and that is again because I'm based down in Sydney, Australia, which is going to mean that you'll need to find times that fit in. If you literally cannot find a time that suits and you want to jump on, especially if you're looking to find out about code methodology, then you can always message me and we can see if I can go outside the boundaries of my calendar and find something in there. But we do have the 2 weeks to be able to get you on a call. So next week and the week after. So keep a lookout for the links. We'll send you a link for you to find a spot on the calendar. My advice is book it in as quick as you can, because they always go like that. And then, then you're having to wait around. So that's all I got on that.
Sounds good.
I won't give you the link out now because I just need to go and double check that I have actually got all the spots that I want available to be available. If you were to click on the link now, you might see all these things that aren't available and you won't find a spot. So I'm going to go and triple check that first. And then Chris will do two things. We'll email you out the link, and I'll also paste the link in the Facebook group. So you will definitely get the link in 2 locations.
Yeah, we'll send out that email specifically. And the thing with the Facebook group, and I'm hesitant to put it in there. you might have some of the other code members and stuff booking calls. Like we have a handful of people in there that are not in the
Ah,
board.
right.
So I'm a bit concerned. Well, they know better. They should know better.
Well, I mean, so we'll just do it. We'll just do the link will come out to you by email, and then tomorrow, if you didn't get the email or something didn't happen tomorrow when I'm jumping on, I can actually put the link in the message chat, like here in Zoom as well.
Curtis asked, it would probably be best to allow myself time to run a new PBC test before the one-to-one call. What's your recommendation on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to get Curtis, if you're going to go ahead and run it and get it started, then you've got, it's going to take 6 to 8 days for you to run that test, depending on how quickly the ads get approved and how you roll it out, which means that you're going to then bump into the back end of next week. So when you look at my calendar, just book something in toward, the back end of the second week. And then that way you'll get your test done and we can jump on and look at it.
Yeah. And so Martine is asking, is the Facebook group going to be active long-term, say in the future? If we want to share results, ask questions, or is it only open for these 4 weeks? It's a great question, Martina. So here's exactly what we do. We offer our support where we are monitoring that group for 2 weeks after this week, right? So from the start of this program, there's 4 weeks of group support and monitoring. After that, we're not monitoring it all day long. I'm not having my team monitor it all day long. However, we leave you in there until the next cohort, which is going to happen sometime in January, February. So you'll still be in there and you'll be able to get feedback from others who have done the test. I'm not going to guarantee that I will be able to respond to everything. And usually I'm not in there very much after this test because I'm servicing people in my code group mostly, and that's where my focus goes. But you're going to still be able to be in there. And if you post something, more than likely, those who have learned along with you will be able to give you feedback and thoughts. And yes, please share your wins. Share your wins, share your wins. If you're getting good results, let others know that it's working. There can never be too much good results where, you're contributing to others' confidence. Some of them may not have gone through this test and gotten the type of result that they were hoping for. And some of them, due to either making, some errors in the test or the nature of what they're selling, they're still dealing with dialing in their offer. There's all kinds of things as to why people may not necessarily have the same expectation. But what we have found is when people do post the results of what they're getting with their ads after they've done their PBC test, even with their full ads, it's very uplifting and inspiring to others. And I have had people reach out to me and say, wow, I still see people having results. I had a tough time. Can I do this again? Right? Can I join the next one? I want to try again. And we do have a lot of people that join multiple times. Like you said, Mike's here for the 4th time. There's others who have been here for the 2nd and 3rd time. And so, following along, what's going to be great is, I'll say this now for all of you. Some of you might have saw my posts in the group, but a returning member gets a discount. So we'll announce all of that at the time. And then we will, if you don't decide to join us next time in January, February, whenever that, we do it like 3 times a year. We do this class. And then we'll exit you from the group at that time when we're starting the next class. So you get to stay in there till then. You can still ask questions. Others will be able to answer. I can't promise I'll answer. I'm in there every once in a while. But yeah, the learning never ends. Yeah, good to be able to share positive results. Absolutely. That's got what I was thinking. Going to start tomorrow. Yeah. So here's the thing, guys. One last thing on this. Some of you want to get it perfect. So I see this happen every time. You start to sabotage yourself because you're like, man, I just didn't do this perfectly. So I'm going to go start over and I'm going to do another one. And then you don't book your call with Dr. Nick to get help. And then the 4 weeks pass and you're still continuing to try to set it up and do it right because you didn't do it perfect, because perfect will fail you. And then you don't get your appointments booked with Dr. Nick because after this time, after these 4 weeks, his calendar is not open for this. Okay. So if you expect that you're going to do another test in the case like Curtis, which I highly recommend most of you still continue to move forward, book your calls now, knowing that you might finish your test later. because what will happen is that calendar will fill up and some people don't get their calls. So I don't want that to be you. All right. Nick has graciously volunteered his time to do this part of the test with everyone, to offer this to people. And it's one of the most important parts because we're wanting to get your feedback. We want your feedback. We want your testimonial. We want to see how it worked out for you. And as you all have experienced, there's lots of details to this. There's lots of dimensions to it. And what may work for one person might need to be translated a bit for another person. And so having Dr. Nick look at it helps you understand what's best for you to get the personalization. All right. And that's why I push for all of you to take advantage of that call. You've got to understand, Dr. Nick, he's very, very, very modest about his qualifications and his acumen and what he does. He won't flaunt that here. Okay. It's not his personality. So I have to sometimes do it for him. Right. So here it goes. All right. This man does a lot of coaching, and look at him, see his face. He's already like, oh my God, here we go. It's embarrassing. Right. He understands people's mindsets better than anyone I know. Because of his background, he has coached high-level executives and business owners for years. He has a client list, and this is actually his busy day, where he's got, like, right after this, here in a minute, he's probably got another call he's got to jump on with another business owner that's doing millions, that pays him thousands of dollars an hour to make sure their head is right. Okay? Because he scores like a 99 out of 100 on the ability to understand people, right? Like to be empathetic and understanding. He's salt of the earth person when it comes to that. He'll understand where you're coming from. He's very disarming at that. At times where I'm like, I know what you're doing, damn it, but it's working, right? So he coaches me a lot, and I rely on his guidance and his expertise and his viewpoint and perspective. And he helps me get out of my own neuroticism. As you have experienced on some of these calls, my brain, although my heart might be here for all of you, my brain can get caught up in neuroticism, right? And so he really helps with that. And I think you'll be shocked and amazed at what he can see about you and help you understand about yourself and what you're doing in such a short amount of time. Now, for someone to have that type of acumen and then have an overlap of marketing expertise in the way that he does, and understanding and mastering code elements and PBC process, which he was the one that really pushed me to do this because he was having so much success doing it. And he's not even an agency, right? He was just helping out his clients. Such a unique crossover. I want you all to understand it is like paying $5,000 just to get on that call. Okay. That's the type of caliber you're dealing with here. So I'm going to say it because he won't. All right. But you're only shooting yourself in the foot if you don't take that call. Okay. So with that, shake what your mama gave you. I think that's clearly the first time I've heard that one within that context. Oh my God. I didn't see that one. There's always one comment somewhere that just I lose it with in every class. That's it right there. That was awesome, Curtis. So yeah, it's definitely book your call. Okay. So with that, it's after the hour. We're at 2 hours. You can get an award for that. We'll see if we can work something out there, Curtis.
Yeah, Curtis, you get a call, buddy.
Absolutely. Okay. Take care, everyone. We will see you tomorrow and we'll finish it out. Take care. Bye now.